My mother handed me 2 crumpled $20 bills and a garbage bag full of my clothes on a Thursday evening in November. I was 17 years old, 3 months from graduating high school, standing on the front porch of the only home I'd ever known. The temperature was dropping fast, maybe 40 degrees, and I was wearing a thin hoodie and jeans. No jacket. She'd packed my clothes but not my winter coat. "You think you're so smart," she said, her voice flat and cold. "Let's see how smart you are in the real world." My stepfather stood behind her in the doorway, arms crossed, that smirk I'd learned to hate spreading across his face. "Good luck out there, princess." Then the door closed. The porch light turned off. And I stood there holding $40 and a garbage bag, my blonde hair whipping in the cold wind, trying to understand how I'd gone from eating dinner at that kitchen table 2 hours ago to being homeless. 15 years later, my mother called me from a number I didn't recognize. I was sitting in my corner office on the 14th floor, reviewing the marketing budget for our spring campaign, the Dallas skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind me. I was 32 years old, VP of marketing at a company I'd helped build from nothing, and I almost didn't answer. Something made me pick up. "Savannah?" Her voice was older, shakier than I remembered. "It's your mother." "Please don't hang up." I leaned back in my leather chair, looked at the framed photo on my desk of me and my husband at our wedding in Napa, and waited. "Your stepfather and we've lost the house. The bank foreclosed. We have nowhere to go. I know it's been a long time, but your family, we need a place to stay, just until we get back on our feet." I let the silence stretch. 15 years of silence condensed into 10 seconds. Then I said, "Good luck out there." And I hung up. Let me take you back, because this story isn't about $40 or a foreclosed house. It's about learning that some people will throw you away when you're inconvenient and come crawling back when they need something. If you've ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect you, if you've ever built a life from nothing while the ones who hurt you watched from the sidelines, this story is for you. I was the only child from my mother's first marriage. My father died when I was 4, car accident on a rainy highway, and I barely remember him. Just fragments. The smell of his cologne, the way he'd braid my hair before preschool, a laugh that seemed to come from somewhere deep. My mother remarried when I was 6. Richard Lawson. He had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Brett and Megan, both a few years older than me. From day one, I was the outsider. The reminder of my mother's first husband, the blonde girl who didn't quite fit with their brown-haired family, the kid who didn't really belong. When I was 8, we went to Disney World. Family vacation. First one I remember. Brett and Megan got matching Mickey ears, autograph books, spending money for souvenirs. I got a single ice cream cone and was told to be grateful. When I asked for an autograph book too, Richard said they were expensive, and I didn't need one. "You're not even that into Disney," my mother said. I was 8. I was into everything, but I learned that day that my wants didn't count the same. When I was 10, Brett broke the neighbor's window with a baseball. Richard paid for it without question, told the neighbors boys will be boys, took Brett out for pizza afterward. A month later, I accidentally knocked over a lamp while doing homework. Not expensive, just a lamp from Target. Richard made me work off the cost by doing extra chores for 3 months. Said I needed to learn responsibility. Brett got pizza, I got punishment. Same household, different rules. When I was 12, my mother forgot my birthday. Not completely forgot, but forgot until dinner time when Megan mentioned it. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," she said, flustered. "We'll celebrate this weekend." We didn't celebrate that weekend. Or the weekend after. By the time she remembered again, It was 3 weeks later. She gave me a $20 bill and said I could buy myself something. Megan's birthday the next month had a party with 15 girls, a spa day, and a custom cake shaped like a purse. High school was when things got really bad. I was a good student, not because anyone pushed me, but because I'd figured out that education was my only way out. I took advanced classes, joined the debate team, worked part-time at a frozen yogurt shop starting sophomore year. Every paycheck, I'd give my mother a portion for household expenses. She never asked Brett or Megan to contribute, even though they were both older and working. But I was expected to pay my way. By junior year, I'd given my mother probably $3,000 total. Money I'd earned scooping yogurt and wiping down tables while trying to maintain a 3.9 GPA. The college talk started senior year. Or rather, it didn't start. For Brett, there had been conversation since freshman year about where he'd apply, what he'd study, how they'd pay for it. He ended up at a decent state school, full ride from his parents, spending money sent monthly. Megan got the same deal, plus a car for her 18th birthday. But when I brought up college applications, my mother looked uncomfortable. "Richard and I have been talking," she said. "We're not sure we can afford to help you. You might need to look at community college, or maybe take a gap year and work." I didn't argue. I just started applying for every scholarship I could find. Spent hours after school in the library, researching grants, filling out applications, writing essays about overcoming adversity. I didn't mention my family. I wrote about wanting to break cycles, about being the first in my biological father's family to go to college, about refusing to let circumstances define my future. I applied to 12 schools, got into 9, and I got a full scholarship to a university in Texas. Tuition, room, board, books, everything covered. When I told my mother, she seemed almost annoyed. "Well," she said, "I guess you figured it out?" No congratulations, no pride, just vague irritation that I'd solved a problem she'd hoped would keep me dependent. Richard didn't say anything at all. Megan, who'd barely graduated college with a 2.1 GPA and was living at home working at a boutique, looked at me like I'd cheated somehow, like earning something was suspicious when you were used to having things handed to you. The fight that got me kicked out happened 3 weeks before graduation. I'd been accepted to the honors program at my university. They'd sent a packet with information about early move-in, orientation events, opportunities. I was reading it at the kitchen table when Richard came in. He saw the packet, saw the university logo. Something in his face shifted. "Must be nice," he said, "getting everything handed to you." I looked up from the glossy brochure. Handed to me? I worked for this. I applied for scholarships. I earned this. You earned it? He laughed, that condescending sound I'd heard 1,000 times. "We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 12 years. Everything you have comes from this family, and now you're just going to leave? Take all those opportunities and give nothing back?" Something in me snapped. Not violently, just cleanly. Like a wire pulled too tight, finally breaking. "Give nothing back?" I said. "I've given half my paychecks for 2 years. I've done chores Brett and Megan never touched. I've been treated like a guest in my own home since I was 6 years old. And you're telling me I owe you something?" Richard's face went red. My mother came in from the living room, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "What's going on?" "Your daughter thinks she's too good for this family," Richard said. "Thinks she can just take her fancy scholarship and disappear." "That's not what I said." "You've always thought you were better than us," Richard continued, pointing at me. "Better than my kids. Looking down at everyone with your grades and your awards. You know what? If you're so smart, let's see how you do on your own." My mother stood there. I looked at her, waiting for her to say something. to defend me, to tell Richard he was being ridiculous. She didn't. She just looked tired, her shoulders slumped, her eyes avoiding mine. And then she said, "Maybe some time apart would be good. Just until things calm down?" "Time apart?" I said, my voice rising despite myself. "I'm 17. Where am I supposed to go?" "You'll figure it out," Richard said, smirking again. "You're smart, remember?" That night, I came home from my shift at the yogurt shop to find a garbage bag on the porch. My clothes, some books, a few random things from my room. My mother came out with $40 in her hand. Her face was set, determined, like she'd convinced herself this was reasonable. "This is for the best," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You need to learn independence. We'll talk after graduation." She didn't say when I could come back. She didn't offer a phone number to call. She just handed me $40 and closed the door. I stood on that porch for maybe 5 minutes, waiting for her to change her mind, to open the door and tell me this was a mistake. The porch light turned off. The house went dark. I was 17, 3 months from graduation, holding everything I owned in a garbage bag, and I had $40 to figure out the rest of my life. I didn't cry. I felt past tears. I walked to the only place I could think of, my friend Kennedy's house, 6 blocks away. Her mother, Mrs. Davidson, answered the door in her bathrobe, saw the garbage bag, saw my face, probably pale under the porch light, my blonde hair tangled from the wind. She didn't ask a single question, just opened the door wider and said, "Come inside, sweetheart. Have you eaten?" The Davidsons let me stay until graduation. I slept in Kennedy's room, on an air mattress wedged between her bed and the wall, kept my garbage bag in her closet, tried to take up as little space as possible. Mrs. Davidson wouldn't take any money for food or utilities. "You save that $40, she said, pressing my hand when I tried to give it to her. "You're going to need it." Mr. Davidson drove me to school when my schedule overlapped with his commute to work. They came to my graduation ceremony, the only people in the audience for me. I walked across that stage, accepted my diploma with honors, and looked out at the crowd. My mother wasn't there. She'd said we'd talk after graduation. We never did. I moved to Texas that August with 2 suitcases, a laptop I'd bought used from a pawn shop, and about $300 I'd saved from my last paychecks. The Davidsons drove me 6 hours to campus, helped me set up my dorm room, took me to lunch at a barbecue place near campus. When they left, Mrs. Davidson hugged me tight and said, "You call if you need anything." "I mean it, Savannah." I promised I would. I never did. Not because I didn't need help, but because I'd learned to figure things out alone. College was hard but good. I applied for every additional scholarship I could find, wrote essays until my fingers cramped, competed for grants against students who had safety nets I didn't have. I won more than I lost. Lived on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, learned to stretch $20 across 2 weeks, became an expert at free campus events that served food. I learned to smile through exhaustion, to look put together even when I was falling apart inside. Freshman year, I called the Davidsons on Thanksgiving, sat in my empty dorm room while most students were home with their families, eating turkey and watching football. The campus felt like a ghost town, the hallways echoing with silence. Mrs. Davidson cried when she heard my voice. Made me promise to visit for Christmas. I took a Greyhound bus back home, spent 3 days sleeping in Kennedy's room again, eating Mrs. Davidson's cooking, feeling what family was supposed to feel like. When I left, she pressed $200 into my hand. I tried to give it back. She wouldn't let me. "You're going to be something special," she said, cupping my face in her hands. "I want to help you get there." I majored in marketing because I wanted to understand how to sell ideas, how to make people see value where they hadn't before. Took every business class I could fit into my schedule. studied branding on my own time, read books about startups, about entrepreneurs who'd built empires from nothing. My professors noticed my intensity. One of them, Dr. Chen, became a mentor. She'd immigrated from Taiwan with nothing, built an academic career through sheer determination. She understood the hunger that drove me, saw something of herself in the blonde girl who sat in the front row, and asked too many questions. Junior year, I did an internship at a marketing agency in Austin. Learned the business from the ground up, how to create campaigns, how to analyze data, how to convince clients that your vision was worth their money. The founder, a woman named Patricia, saw something in me, offered me a full-time position after graduation before I'd even finished my senior year, said I reminded her of herself 20 years ago. Hungry, focused, unafraid to outwork everyone in the room. I graduated in 4 years with a 3.8 GPA and a job waiting. Walked across that stage alone again. No family in the audience. But this time it didn't hurt the same way. I'd built something. Proven something. The girl with the garbage bag had become a college graduate with a future. I was 22 years old, completely alone in the world, and finally free. The first few years after college were about survival, entry-level salary, shared apartment with 2 roommates in a sketchy part of Austin, counting every dollar. But I'd learned to be careful with money, to save, to plan. Every paycheck I'd set aside something. Even when it hurt, even when my roommates were going out to bars and I was staying and eating cheap pasta. I had a goal, a vision, a way out of the cycle that had defined my childhood. I threw myself into work, stayed late, came early, volunteered for projects nobody else wanted. While other junior marketers were watching the clock, I was studying our top performers, figuring out what made campaigns succeed or fail. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted twice. Within 4 years, I was managing a team. The agency grew, and I grew with it. Patricia noticed everything, gave me more responsibility, more clients, more opportunities to prove myself. Every late night, every sacrificed weekend, every moment I'd chosen work over comfort had compounded into something real, something nobody could take from me. I met Daniel when I was 28. He was a software engineer at a tech company we were doing a campaign for. Came to a meeting, stayed for coffee, asked for my number with a nervousness that made me smile. He knew about my past, the abbreviated version at least. Knew I'd been kicked out, knew I'd built everything myself, knew I didn't talk to my family. He never pushed for details, just accepted me as I was, loved me for the woman I'd become, not despite my scars, but including them. We got married when I was 30. Destination wedding in Napa Valley. 50 guests who actually wanted to be there. I didn't invite my mother. Didn't even consider it. I didn't think about her much anymore. She existed in a locked room in my mind, a chapter I'd closed and moved past. I didn't know where she lived, what she was doing, whether she ever thought about me. I didn't search for updates on social media. Didn't ask the few mutual acquaintances I still had contact with. The door was closed, and I intended to keep it that way. Then she called. 15 years after handing me $40 and closing the door. 15 years of complete silence, not a single birthday card or Christmas text. She called asking for a place to stay. Richard had lost his job 4 years ago, she said. They'd been living off savings, then credit cards, then equity from the house, then nothing. The house I'd been kicked out of, the one I'd never been good enough to live in permanently, was being foreclosed. They had nowhere to go. Brett was divorced and living paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment couldn't help. Megan had 3 kids and a husband who'd just been laid off, said she didn't have room. They'd exhausted every option. I was the last call. The daughter they'd thrown away was now their only hope. "Savannah," she said, her voice cracking. "I know things weren't perfect, but we're family. Please." Family. The word hit different when it came from her. Family was Mrs. Davidson opening her door without questions at 10 o'clock at night. Family was Kennedy sharing her room for 3 months without complaint. Family was Daniel holding my hand when I told him about my childhood, his eyes filling with tears I couldn't cry anymore. Family wasn't the woman who'd handed me a garbage bag and wished me luck. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I can't help you." "You can't help?" Her voice went sharp, the old edge creeping in. "I looked you up online. You're a vice president. You have a house in Highland Park. You can afford to help." "I can afford a lot of things," I said. "I can't afford to let you back into my life. There's a difference." "This is ridiculous. We're your family. We raised you." "You raised me until I was inconvenient. Then you threw me out with $40 and told me good luck." "I'm returning the favor. That was Richard's decision. I didn't have a choice. You know how he gets. You had a choice. You made it. You chose him over me. You chose his kids over your own daughter. You chose that every single day for 12 years, and then you chose it one final time when you put my life in a garbage bag and closed the door. You watched me stand on that porch. You turned off the light." She was crying now. I could hear it in her breathing, the wet gasps between words. "I made mistakes. I know that. But I'm still your mother." "You gave birth to me," I said. "That doesn't make you my mother." "Mrs. Davidson was more of a mother in 3 months than you were in 17 years. She opened her door when you closed yours. She fed me when you handed me $40. She came to my graduation when you couldn't be bothered. She cried at my wedding." "Where were you?" "I wanted to be there for those things. I didn't know how to reach out. My number hasn't changed. My email hasn't changed. In 15 years, you never tried. Not once. And now you're calling because you need something. That tells me everything I need to know about why you're really here." She was quiet for a moment, just crying. Then, "So you're just going to let us be homeless? After everything we did for you?" "After everything," I repeated, letting each word land. "Yes. After everything you did and didn't do. After every birthday you forgot while throwing parties for Megan. After every dollar you took from my paychecks while Brett got an allowance. After watching him get pizza while I did extra chores for breaking a lamp. After being told I wasn't worth college help while you paid for 2 kids who weren't even yours. After standing on that porch at 17 in the cold, wondering what I'd done wrong, watching the light turn off. Yes, after everything. You've become cold. I've become successful. There's a difference. And I've become very careful about who I let into my life. People who abandon children don't get second chances. They get consequences." I hung up, set my phone down on my mahogany desk, sat there for a long moment, looking out at the Dallas skyline, waiting to feel something. Guilt, maybe. Satisfaction. Vindication. What I felt was nothing. Just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. A door closed. Finally and completely. My assistant knocked. "Your 3 o'clock is here, Savannah." "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "Then send them in." I fixed my hair in my compact mirror, reapplied my lipstick, straightened my blazer. The woman looking back at me was someone my 17-year-old self wouldn't recognize. Polished, confident, powerful, built from nothing by no one but herself. Daniel called that evening while I was driving home. "You okay? You sound different." My mother called. Silence. He knew what that meant. What did she want? A place to stay. They lost their house. Jesus, what did you tell her? I told her good luck. He was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? I thought about it as I pulled into our driveway, the house we'd bought together, the life we'd built. I feel like I finally closed a door that's been cracked open for 15 years. I feel like I don't owe her anything. I feel like the 17-year-old me, the one standing on that porch holding a garbage bag, would be proud of who she became. And I feel like that woman doesn't need to save people who wouldn't save her. Then you made the right choice, Daniel said. Come inside, I made dinner. My mother called twice more over the next week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. The first was angry, calling me ungrateful, cold, heartless, reminding me of everything they'd sacrificed for me. The second was pleading, sobbing, saying she was sorry, saying she'd do anything to make it right, asking me to just call her back. I deleted both without listening past the first few seconds. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed forever. Richard called once too, left a voicemail that was pure venom. Called me every name in the book, some I'd never heard before. Said I was proving what he'd always known, that I was selfish and cold and had never been part of the family anyway. Said my father would be ashamed of me. I saved that one, not sure why. Maybe as a reminder of who they really were, in case I ever started doubting myself. I found out through a distant cousin on Facebook that they'd ended up in a motel for a few weeks, then moved in with Richard's brother in Oklahoma. Not homeless, just displaced. Inconvenienced. Having to rebuild at 63 years old instead of coasting into retirement. Facing consequences for decisions they'd made decades ago. I felt nothing reading that post. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just the quiet recognition that actions have outcomes, and theirs had finally caught up to them. It wasn't revenge. It was just math. You can't withdraw from an account you never deposited into. Mrs. Davidson passed away 2 years ago. I flew back for the funeral, sat with Kennedy and her father, cried harder than I'd cried since I was 17. That woman had saved my life with a spare room and a kind word and $40 she wouldn't let me spend. I'd paid for her medical care when she got sick, sent monthly checks she tried to refuse, held her hand in the hospital at the end. That's what real family does. They show up. They stay. They don't hand you $40 and close the door. In her will, she left me a locket that had belonged to her mother. I wear it every day, tucked under my blouse, close to my heart. I'm 32 now, vice president of marketing at a company worth more than I ever dreamed. I have a husband who makes me laugh, a house with a garden I actually enjoy tending, plans for children we'll raise with love instead of conditions. I built a life from $40 and a garbage bag, from a Thursday night in November when the porch light went dark. I have everything I wanted and nothing I was given. Every success is mine. Every achievement is proof. Not proof to them anymore. Proof to myself. I still have that $40. Not the original bills, but $40 set aside in an envelope in my jewelry box. A reminder of what I started with. When I look at that envelope, I don't feel pain anymore. I don't feel anger or sadness or even triumph. I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the girl who didn't give up. Gratitude for the Davidsons who opened their door. Gratitude for every professor and mentor and stranger who saw something worth investing in. Gratitude for Daniel, who loves the woman those $40 created. If you've ever been thrown away by people who should have protected you, this story is for you. If you've ever built something from nothing while the ones who abandoned you watched from a distance, this is for you. If you've ever been called cold for refusing to save people who wouldn't save you, this is for you. You don't owe anyone your success just because they share your blood. You don't owe second chances to people who never gave you a first one. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is hand back the same gift they gave you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been abandoned by family and then asked for help years later? Did you help them or set a boundary? I read every story. And if you want more stories about people who rose from the ashes of their family's failures, subscribe. Sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's a corner office they'll never see and a door they'll never open.